7 most expensive fails. Chances are you're probably trying to earn your money the traditional way, by getting a job. But there are plenty of people who take the Warren Buffett approach and invest their money. It's not just investment gurus like Mr. Buffett who take this approach. Governments and companies also invest their money in various schemes. But sometimes, because of bad investments, bad management, and more often than not, bad luck, we're left with crashes and burns of epic proportions. We don't just mean literal crashes, we're talking about the most expensive fails in history. While it's hard to really determine the exact financial loss incurred, it has amounted to billions of dollars. Today, at Profits of Success, we bring you the 7 most expensive fails. Before we get into the video, thank you for joining the Profits of Success, a channel where the most successful people come to up their game. Let's start with number 7. Number 7. Ronald Wayne and Apple. Everyone knows that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple in 1976, but they also had a third partner, Ronald Wayne. He advised Jobs and Wozniak with the building of their company in return for a 10% stake. However, Wayne was overly cautious due to a failed venture 4 years earlier and left Apple less than 2 weeks after Apple's formation. He sold his shares back to the two Steves for only $800. While he was offered a business contract for Apple later by Jobs, he refused, saying it would be a conflict of interest. According to reports, Wayne would have been worth more than £25 billion today if he had kept his stock. He doesn't have any regrets, as he said, that even though Apple ended up becoming one of the most valuable companies in the world, with the stress of staying at Apple, he probably would have wound up the richest man in the cemetery. Number 6. Toshihide Iguchi's fatal miscalculation. Iguchi was working at Dalwa Bank's New York branch in the Securities Custody Department starting in 1980. In 1983, he lost $70,000 trading Federal Reserve note, a loss which he tried to conceal, protecting his job and reputation. He tried to make up for the losses, but his debt just kept snowballing. This all happened while his professional life flourished, eventually becoming the executive vice president. Eventually, his trading operation caught up with him with his losses totaling more than $1 billion. For 12 years, he was able to dodge the authorities until he was arrested in his home in New Jersey. Before we continue, please remember to subscribe to Profits of Success and click the bell icon to get regular updates on daily content on success, wealth, luxury, and business. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Back to the video. Number 5. The rogue trader Nick Leeson. We've often heard about companies going bankrupt, but it's rare to hear about someone being responsible for bankrupting one of the oldest banks in the United Kingdom. Nicholas Leeson is a former English trader who is infamous for bankrupting Baring Bank, the oldest merchant bank in the United Kingdom. The bank, which was founded in 1762, collapsed in 1995 after suffering losses of £827 million or £1.6 billion in 2019. Leeson was supposed to be seeking to profit from differences in the prices of different markets. However, instead of buying on one market and immediately selling on another market for a small profit, Leeson bought on one market then held on to the contract, gambling on the future direction of the Japanese markets. He began doing this in January 1992 and in the absence of oversight tried to cover up his losses by gambling more on the market and covering up all his losses. In the end, ING purchased Barings Bank in 1995 for the nominal sum of £1. Talk about a record-setting loss. Number 4. An expensive nuclear disaster. A tragedy that still sends shivers down the spine. The Chernobyl disaster was caused by a nuclear accident that occurred on April 26, 1986, at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat in the north of the Ukraine SSR. The initial emergency response, together with later decontamination of the environment, ultimately involved more than 500,000 personnel and cost an estimated 18 billion Soviet rubles, roughly $68 billion in 2019, adjusted for inflation. And that's not even taking into account the long-lasting effects that have persisted to plague generation after generation of the inhabitants of the area. The name Chernobyl has since become synonymous with the concept of a disaster of nuclear proportions. It has been referred to in countless books, movies, music, and television shows, with the most recent and most popular being HBO's miniseries Chernobyl that aired in 2019. While the series was exhaustively researched, some liberties were taken for dramatic purposes, and certain critics, experts, and people who have witnessed the events pointed out historical and factual discrepancies presented in the show. Despite this, the show received 19 Emmy nominations and won 3 awards. Number 3. The costly hardware malfunction. Remember Bitcoins? While the cryptocurrency might be a little esoteric to most, when it first emerged, some people still took a chance with it and eventually became extremely rich following the boom. While it made some people rich, for one man in Wales, it was not a welcome event. By 2009, James Howell from Newport, England, United Kingdom, had accumulated 7,500 bitcoins, but was unaware of their worth. His virtual currency collection was worth £3.8 million by 2013. However, to Howell's horror, he had spilled the drink on the hard drive that contained the bitcoins and trashed it. After learning the value of the bitcoins, he made desperate efforts to recover the hard drive from the local junkyard but failed to locate it. Howell thinks that now the hard drive is probably worth $1 billion or more. Despite casually misplacing such a massive sum, Howell has said his greatest regret wasn't that he accidentally threw out the hard drive, it's that he stopped mining Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency's early days. I was one small decision away from walking out of my house with $10 billion in my back pocket. That's what I regret most. The fact I stopped mining when I knew how big it was going to be, Howell said. I have good days and bad days, but overall I'm good. Anyway, no point in crying about it. Number 2. Morgan Stanley's near-fatal crash. Investment firms tend to bet big. The bigger the risk, the bigger the payout. They live on making calculated bets about the market, and while often they have success, they tend to get a little too confident, which leads them to crashing and burning. Enter Howie Hubler. Hubler worked in Morgan Stanley as a bond trader who made some incredibly dumb decisions with the bonds he was given. The long story short to a very complicated story is that he took a big bet that depended on the housing market in 2005, and when the 2007 financial crisis dropped, incurred a loss of roughly $9 billion, the largest trading loss in Wall Street history. In the end, Morgan Stanley would lose up to $58 billion in the financial crisis overall. If the story sounds familiar, it's probably because Hubler's story was mentioned in the 2015 film The Big Short. Number 1. Russia's biggest fall. Alaska is known for its rugged landscape, harsh climate, and one of the highest per capita income in the United States. What most people forget is that Alaska once belonged to Russia. Russia had established a presence in North America during the first half of the 18th century, but few Russians ever settled in Alaska. In the aftermath of a Crimean War, Emperor Alexander II of Russia began exploring the possibility of selling Alaska, which would be difficult to defend from Britain and other countries in any future war. Following the end of the American Civil War, U.S. Secretary of State William Seward entered into negotiations with Russian Minister Edward de Stockel for the purchase of Alaska. Seward and Stockel agreed to a treaty on March 30, 1867. The purchase added 586,000 square miles of new territory to the United States for the cost of $7.2 million. Of course, what no one knew was that Alaska had vast resources of oil and has reserves. All in all, the Russians lost out on billions of dollars each year. Hey Prophets, you stayed until the end, and that can only mean one thing. You are destined for success. If you made it this far, type The Big Short in the comments below so we know who made it till the end. Until next time, Prophets, thanks for watching and keep on striving for success. Why not check out some of these videos on the screen now, which we think you'll like and will help you to become the most successful version of yourself. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.